Hi, my loves. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the TRIBEvibe meditation series. Today we are going to be talking about... What are we talking about today, y'all? We're talking about how to let things go. And I apologize for being a little late because we had some technical difficulties over there on the Book of Face. So I'm just going to upload the video later. So if you're here with us on Instagram, welcome to the live. If you're not and you need to catch the playback, it'll be a little late. Okay, so anyway, hope everybody can find us if they're trying to do live. If not, they're going to just have to catch up later. But anyway, we are going to be talking about letting go today. We talked about letting go yesterday. I gave you guys a major example of a situation that I just kept on not letting go of. And I hope that you could find some kind of commonalities, or even just things that you noticed that you were like, you know what, that is something I don't want to do. Maybe you haven't done it yet, but you just noticed that was something you don't want to do. So I hope that story helped y'all in any way, shape, or form. And like I said, if you ain't get nothing else but to let these babies decide what they want to do, and let them know that it's okay to not always have it planned out when you're young, and that you can, that's not about letting it go. But I told you I was very traumatized by having to go to school for all that time just to get out and be like, I didn't even want to do what I was in school and have all that debt and everything. So if you don't get nothing else from yesterday, get that to let them babies know that it's okay to not have to go to school. It's also okay to change their mind if they're in school. When they get done with school, it's also okay to change their mind then too. Okay? Anyway. So I wanted to talk a little bit more today about letting it go, or just letting things go, because just like the example yesterday, you can find that if you look back on your life and you're like, oh my God, hindsight is 20/20, and you can see times that you're really like, I was holding on to something, and not for necessarily even the reasons that I thought I was holding on to it for. And it really impacted my life in this way. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad. But I just want you to be able to make the choice. I don't want you to be holding on to something and fighting tooth and nail for something because you're not able to recognize that's what you're doing, and then you look up and have some of those negative consequences. If it's a good consequence and you did it on accident, that's great. But I don't want you to be doing it unwillingly, right? And then have some negative fallout from it. Negative. Y'all know I don't like to use that word. Have some fallout from it, right? So, we're just going to talk about a few different... I don't even know what to categorize these things as. It isn't as technical as we usually get when I get to tell you, this is XYZ and this is the neurotransmitter that did this. We're going to get a little bit more into the psych side of things, some of those personal relationships with yourself. We over there in that territory. So, not as many technical, definitions as we usually do. But stick with me. We're going on a journey today, and I hope you find something useful while we on it, okay? All right, so the first thing we want to talk about when letting go is, I think a lot of times I find myself, and I see it in other people when we're talking about these things and we can recognize it and kind of start unpacking it, is that we just have a hard time staying in the present. And I know we've been talking about that on different episodes throughout the different weeks about how when you are, practicing those techniques of mindfulness and different things like that, and even the meditating and things like that, it is about being present-minded. And what you'll find when you listen to a bunch of different people talk about things that they're expert, when they're experts in these categories of being happy and mindfulness and meditation and just, practicing calm and just, that kind of general area, right? Not even specific, but just that whole overarching wellness and self-care life, living your best self-care life. You'll find that a lot of times people really will talk about how it is very imperative that you live in the present moment. And I heard this really, I was listening to Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. If you don't listen to Super Soul Sunday, I suggest you go find you a couple episodes, because Oprah does nothing but get on there for the hour and talk to people who live their best life in whatever way, shape, or form. And they talk about how they live their best life. Okay, now I don't see how you could not gain some kind of insight from people who have mastered their craft, or whatever position they hold in life. I don't see how you couldn't gain something from that. We always talk about you're going to practice it, it's going to become a habit, and then you're going to master it. So, shoot, you can't tell me not to go listen to a master, and you sit at the feet of a master, right? And so they were talking, and I really digress. I'm going to come back. They were talking, and they were saying, basically, like, when you find yourself living in the past, it's like you're guilt tripping yourself, right? Like, you're holding on to the guilt of that. So, like the what ifs, like, oh, I could be this person if I didn't, like, say for instance, you're an athlete and like you had an injury in high school or something and you were really good and you thought you were going to go to the league and then you had this injury and you're like, oh, you just spend the rest of your life. And we've seen people do things, not maybe that specific, but we've seen people live there and we've lived there ourselves from time to time where it's like, dang, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like I said, hindsight is 20/20. But what you don't want to do is find yourself in that guilt trip loop, right? Where it's like you're focusing so much on things that you couldn't change, right? Because we talked about that a couple of weeks ago too, about being able to focus on what you can change in regards to like lowering your stress and anxiety around life. And you cannot change things that happen. Well, like, we know that for facts. I don't have to convince you of that. I didn't even got to spell it out. You can't change things that have happened. And so just constantly focusing on them. I'm not telling you not to learn a lesson. If you've been through some things and you're like, you know what, that thing didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And so because I did it in this way, like I took step A, B, and C, maybe next time I'm going to try to take step A, C, then B, because I realize that works better, right? That's healthy. But just like kind of dwelling on it over and over again, if it's something you can't change and you're not learning any lessons from it, you just holding on to the resentment of it didn't happen the way you wanted it to, that's not a good position to hold. And so I know that in regards to letting it go, that is a lot of people's biggest hang up, is that they find themselves just holding on tooth and nail to that thing that they can't let go because it didn't happen in the way they wanted it to. And so you're going to have to find a way to let that thing go. We're going to talk more about how you let it go tomorrow. But we're just talking about what's keeping you holding on to things, okay? And then also, another thing we talked about yesterday was about letting situations or like self-identifying situations that you have been through. So this is also living in the past, right? Because you ain't living in the present if you're thinking about something that you've been through. Self-identifying those situations as being who you are, right? Like, I think I hear a lot of people say, like, my past made me who I am. That's true, right? Because you can't, you just are a summation of all of the things that you've ever been through, seen, known, whatever, right? You're a summation of those things. But that does not necessarily dictate what your character is. That may dictate what your perspective is, right? We talked about that before, about, how you see the world can be colored by those things you have been through. But some of the things you've been through don't necessarily make you a good or a bad person, or even a neutral person, right? We can go down the middle. It doesn't put you on that scale, right? Because we know for facts that there are people that have been through the exact same things that you've been through. We have people all the time who live in the same house with the same siblings that have been through the same things they went through. And they didn't turn out the same way, right? Like, one of them may have turned out to be real manipulative and the other one may have turned out to be a pushover, and maybe one of them turned out to be normal. So it colored their perspective, right? The situation that they went through colored how they see the world. So that may color a little bit of how they show up. But that doesn't necessarily color exactly who they are. Who they were was probably who they were born into being, right? So I think that is another part of the puzzle when we talk about finding things hard to let go. If you have taken on a badge of, I've been through that, or that is now me. Whatever I went through is now me. And we can talk about it like relationships. Like, think about it in regards to that. Sometimes it's really hard. And we'll go into that another day. We'll talk about, like, how gut-wrenchingly devastating it can be to your emotional state, mental health, and all of those things to, end a relationship. But we have found that sometimes people, and even parents do this too, sometimes with their kids, they take on the relationship as who they are, right? And like, like I said, parents, like the mother is like, oh, I'm your mama. And I'm like nothing else. I'm not who I am or who I was before I was your mama. Now I'm your mama and I'm only your mother. And so sometimes we find that we can see those things really easily in other people. So I'm trying to give you guys a couple different examples. So hopefully something will spark so you can understand like, okay, yeah, I do see that. I see that pretty often in other people. And generally, if you see it in other people, it's probably showing up in your life too. So I want you to make sure that you are paying attention to times and situations where you could potentially be taking on some of those things that you may need to let go so that you can move forward, right? Because if we dragging the weight, y'all know what, I didn't even think about this till right now. So don't add me. Y'all know I say that all the time. Don't add me at your mama. Steve Harvey said I know some people they don't like Uncle Steve no more. They done told him he can't come to the cookout no more. But Uncle Steve said that he had the analogy of like pulling a wagon. I don't know if you guys heard that one. And he was like, you know, he was talking about hanging people that were like leeches and hanger-ons. And he's like, if you're pulling the wagon and that is your life and you've got all these people in the wagon that aren't doing anything and you're just dragging them along, they're going to make it a lot harder for you to move your life forward or uphill or whatever you want to say, right? And he's like, so if you've got things in your wagon, they need to be working for you. He's like, you know, if there's rocks in the way, they need to get out and move the rocks, or some of them can be in there kicking with their foot, whatever, right? Okay, you get the analogy. And so in regards to that, it's the same thing. It's sometimes easier to see it when it's people, when we're holding on to people that we feel as though are dragging us a little bit or making our load heavier. Sometimes we don't think about the things that we're personally holding on to that are adding to that weight, right? I know there was a time in my life that I felt like Atlas is kind of what I would describe it as. I felt as though I had the world on my back. Like I'm just walking around just all day hunched over, world on my back, carrying that mug around. Ain't nobody helping me. I'm still having to do other stuff while I got this thing on my back, right? And I realized I was the one who had to put that stuff down, right? I had to let it go because it wasn't serving me, right? And we don't want to let go of things that are serving us, and not in like an egotistical way or like a selfish way. I mean, like in a genuine way. Like your healthy relationships with other people, they serve you, right? You serve them, they serve you. It's reciprocity. But there are also a lot of things that we hang on to that we have hard times letting go of that don't serve us. And so making sure that you don't take on those situations, because okay, I didn't trying to circle back around to what I was saying because I didn't went down a tangent. I didn't mean to go there talking about Uncle Steve. But taking on those situations that don't serve you, that are doing you no help. Like I said, if you can learn a lesson, but let the lesson be there. You don't got to drag the lesson and the chalkboard and the chalk and the teacher and all the classmates and the desk. You don't got to drag them along with you. Just take the lesson with you. Leave all the other stuff back there. Okay? Okay. I was listening to Ayala Van Zandt. I don't know if she's still invited to the picnic. Y'all love to cancel people. Picnic, cookout. I don't know if y'all are still inviting her. But I was listening to her the other day. Her show is just ending. And so, like, she had her last couple episodes. And she was talking about, she was in the middle of talking about something else. But she said something really profound that stood out to me. And she was like, part of, like, who you are as a person, like how you show up, it needs to be an integrity. And she was like, the integrity means that what you do matches what you say, and it matches what your intentions are, right? Like all those things coincide. Like they're all working in tandem together. And I say that to say that you will find yourself when you're having an inability to let something go, you'll find that you're really not working in tandem, right? You're working against yourself, because in some way, shape, or form, you're not able to show up in how you feel. You're not able to show up and actually like execute what you say you're gonna do, and your intentions may be something completely different. Because I know a lot of the times we have the best intentions, right? Like what we're intending to do is not a thing of like being a disappointment to ourselves and letting ourselves down and not holding ourselves accountable, or even I'm not going to say it's a worse situation, but even showing up in somebody else's life and exercising some of those things. I don't want to call them negative. Some of those things that can be deconstructive, right? And so I think that is a good point to always ask yourself, like kind of a check-in point to always ask yourself when you're wondering, is it something that I need to let go of, right? So ask yourself, is it helping me to work in my integrity, right? Like, is it helping me to show up in my actions? Is it helping me with who I am on the inside, like what my intentions are? And when I'm speaking of the things, am I able to speak of them with integrity because they match what I'm doing and how I'm feeling on the inside, right? So like that's a good checkpoint, I think, when you're talking about living in the past, when you're talking about taking on those situations, you know, as your character. I think that's a good place to kind of measure it. And then also another thing kind of in that same wheelhouse is in regards to making sure that you do not show up and think that like your character is the situation, is understanding what defense mechanisms look like and what yours specifically look like is the most important, right? When you can recognize things for yourself, it's a lot easier for you to recognize it with other people. But once you start to like master that, like practice it, make it a habit, master it, once you start to do that, then you're able to see it in other people. And then remember we was talking about honey, you can't change nobody else. It allows you to give that other person that grace, right? Because you gotta give people the grace, because you gotta really disconnect. What they doing ain't about you. But when I'm saying all that, defense mechanisms, I'm talking about that specifically because I find that usually that's when we judge ourselves the most, right? Is when we show up in a way that isn't like in that, living in that integrity, right? So when we're wanting to do, or when we had all of the intentions to do, and then when we look back, we like, ooh, I ain't mean to cuss Miss Shirley out at the job yesterday. Miss Shirley get on my nerves, and I said I was gonna stop letting Miss Shirley get on my nerves, but I didn't cuss Miss Shirley out again for the umpteenth time, right? Like, okay, that's a random situation, but you know, something in regards to that nature, right? Whereas you're showing up in your defense mechanism, it is not because that's who you are, right? You just said that you don't want to do that, right? Your intentions are closer to who you are most of the time than when you're, well, not most of the time. Your intentions are closer to who you are than when you're showing up in like dysfunction, which is what a defense mechanism is. Like you're in breakdown, so you're all right, y'all. I said I wasn't going to try to get all technical on y'all. When you're having a defense mechanism and you're showing up in that breakdown, it's really because what we were talking about previously when we talked about anxiety and stress and things of that nature, like that's a whole nother, we talked about your amygdala. It's a whole nother part of your brain that has taken over because you feel defense, right? You feel in danger. And so now your body has switched somewhere else. You're not using your prefrontal cortex. I'll be linking everything together. Y'all welcome. But you're not using like the most rational part of your brain, like the planning part. You're not actually using that part of your brain when you're trying to do these things. You're just showing up in a defense. You like, somebody fighting me, I'm ready to fight. So whatever that fight looks like is how you show up. And that is a defense mechanism. And so when you're doing that, you're not able to live in your integrity, right? And so then you find yourself in these situations, and instead of allowing the situation to be what it is, to really understand that was a defense mechanism, I showed up in that way because I felt threatened, right? For one reason or another, you have to work that out for yourself, and you will have different defense mechanisms for different stimulus. But when you start to find those things out for yourself and you recognize what your pattern is, then you need to let that be what it is. Let it go. It's not who you are. It was what you did. It's what you did in a breakdown. And you can understand if you ever been going through something for real, where you can really give yourself some grace and say, you know what, I really didn't mean to show up like that. You need to practice that in every aspect of your life when you're going through a defense mechanism. unpack it so that you don't keep doing that, because it can be harmful for you, harmful for your relationships with others. Other people can take on the situation and feel as though it's their character, like it has something to do with their character. So you need to work it out. But I was just saying that because that's also part of the integrity of you showing up, right? Because your intentions aren't matching, your actions aren't matching your words because of defense mechanisms. So then you find yourself taking on situations that may not have anything to do with who you are as a person that you need to let go. Okay, did we full circle it for y'all? Was you taking notes? I was talking fast. I hope you could keep up. Alright, so that is that part. And then the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was people having a hard time letting things go because they don't want to be uncomfortable. Honey, if I see this in myself, if I see this in other people, I kid you not, I feel like the majority of the times when I'm seeing other people having issues with letting things go, it is because they don't want to be uncomfortable. That really just is what it is. Their growth is uncomfortable. It's so crazy because like our bodies are so well adapted to trying to forget things that are uncomfortable. We don't necessarily forget them. We kind of sweep them under the rug, right? Like you suppress it a little bit. But when they call it growing pains, they say that for a reason. Like kids, think about a baby who's getting new teeth. Like that is a very easy time, I think, for most people to understand that there is something growing and it's causing discomfort, right? Them babies be cranky, honey. If they could tear something up, they would tear something up. Like you could tell in everything, in every fiber in their body, they ready to pop off, okay? And not ready to. Most of them are popping off. They're just in a continual state of popped offness, okay? But you can understand how that is something that growth is required. It's required for us to get teeth so we can eat food, so that we can stay alive, right? And so it's the same thing when your bones are growing. It gets uncomfortable. When you're having those kind of growth spurts for kids, sometimes they'll be cranky, sometimes not. And it's the same thing when you're growing as an adult and you're challenging yourself, because you may not be physically still growing, but you're growing mentally. And when you got to challenge yourself, it's going to be uncomfortable in some way, shape, or form. It's going to be uncomfortable for you. And it's never going to stop being uncomfortable. You get comfortable with the uncomfort, if that makes sense. It never stops, because when you're forging into something new, even if it's nothing more than you have to challenge yourself to do that, that challenge is going to be uncomfortable, right? And I actually personally, I get excited, and I might be a little crazy. I get excited with the uncomfortable, right? Because I'm like, ooh, this is an exciting time for me to find out something new, for me to challenge myself to reach a new level, new height, right? So I find it exciting. But I know a lot of people really will shy away from feeling uncomfortable. And so when you need to let something go, 9 times out of 10, you're holding on to it for some personal reason. We don't usually just drag things around just because. We done hooked them up to us, like, because there's some personal connection there. Something we think we're gaining from holding on to it. So, like I said, it could be that you think that situation defines who you are. It could be that you're having a hard time recognizing, like, what level of integrity you're holding with yourself, and so you're holding on to those things because your thinking is working in integrity, right? It's a part of how you talk. It's a part of how you act, right? It's a part of what your intentions are, and you hold on to it for that reason. Or, like we said, sometimes people are just holding on to things because they're living in the past and they're having a hard time maintaining living in the present. And so for whatever reason, shape, or form, you hold on to them things, it's personal for you. And so, I can't sit up here and tell you, I'm gonna attempt tomorrow to tell you some things to try to do to get rid of some of them things. But really, what you really need to do is put in the work and figure out what your personal attachment is to those things that you need to let go, that you have recognized that you need to let go. And then also, after you figure out what the personal attachment is, recognize what has prevented you from letting it go in the first place. Because there's going to be times when you realize that it is just because it was uncomfortable. It's nothing more than that. It just was going to take some effort or energy and you weren't ready to expend that because maybe you got the job and the job is stressing you out already, or the kids, or you don't feel like you got no free time. I hear people tell me that all the time. I don't have the time. Y'all know y'all are not literally physically doing something every second of the day. So you got the time, you're not making the time, and you're not making the time probably because it's going to make you uncomfortable, and for some reason you have worked out with yourself that level of uncomfort is not worth it, but sitting in the mess is worth it, okay? I'm not going to start preaching on today. That's a whole nother topic for another day. But that is another thing that I find that people have challenges with when they're facing the hurdle of letting things go. So I want you to spend some time. Y'all know I like to give y'all some homework. I want you to spend some time thinking about any of the stuff we said today. Is there a situation in your life that you feel as though it's not really serving you? You ain't serving it, and it needs to be let go. But you haven't done it yet. So I want you to kind of think through some of those things we talked about, like, and identify with yourself, because we're not just here to talk about it, we're here to be about it. Identify with yourself what it is. Like, which one of those things resonates with you the most in regards to that particular situation, because different situations may have different reasoning, right? Because they all personal. So you may be holding on to one thing for one reason, another thing for another. But, you may not start with the most pressing. I was about to send y'all down a wormhole. Don't start with the most pressing thing. Start with something simple. Really, honestly. Excuse me, y'all. Excuse me. I always tell people that change happens incrementally. Like, you just pick a small thing. Y'all know a small thing right now that you've been saying you was gonna stop doing or start doing or whatever, and you haven't done it yet. Figure out why. Because it's something you need to let go. Figure out what it is and do it. Something small. And, after you master that, move on to something else. But don't start with the big thing. You're going to worry and stress yourself out, honey. And you're going to be in my DMs, and I'm going to have to send you to the folks and let you talk to the folks, because I ain't got it. But I got some folks that got it. So if you need some resources, go ahead and DM me, because I'll direct you to the resources, okay? I'm just here to spark the flame. I ain't here to put it out. Anyway, so I'm done with that today. Fairly simple. Well, not fairly simple. Let me not say that. A short talk today. And so, like I said, tomorrow we're going to get into some strategies and some ways to kind of start unpacking some of those things, okay? All right. Now, I'm sorry I got y'all all in the tizzy. And we about to do our meditation, so I'm going to unwind you. I wound you up, and now I'm going to unwind you. I did my part, okay? We're going to do our meditation on Facebook. Why do I always do that? Netflix. It's produced by Headspace. A guide to meditation. I say that every time I need to figure out what the title of the thing is, because I always mix up the words. But we're going to listen to that today. Today's episode, today's particular type of meditation is about helping people to let things go. So the technique isn't like as obvious of what you're doing the technique for in order to help with that, but it will. So just stick with it. We're going to do it. We did it yesterday. We'll do it today. We'll do it again tomorrow. So, because we want to do what? We want to practice it. Make it a habit, then we gonna master it. All right, now y'all know, y'all been here, y'all know. Anyway, so are you guys ready? We got to do our housekeeping. So I just want you to get somewhere comfortable, sit or lay down. I want your spine straight and your neck straight. Arms, legs can be bent if you want to. Try to limit your distractions if you can. If you can't limit them and you get distracted in the middle of the meditation, that's okay. Think about, say, hey, fan. I got a fan on. Say, hey, fan. And then come on back to the practice. I love you for being here, and you cannot do this wrong. I haven't said that in a couple sessions, and I need to make sure I remind everybody, because we have some new people on here sometimes, and they get on here feeling like they're doing it wrong. And you can't do it wrong because you're here. That was the only thing you could have done wrong, was not show up, and you're here. So I appreciate you. So, all right, y'all ready? Everybody comfortable? All right, here go Andy. Let me turn him out.
For the clouds to part.
Where did Andy go to? Is he at the right spot?
We're going to begin with the eyes open. A nice soft focus, just aware of the space around you. So not staring at one thing, but just seeing everything very softly. And just maintaining that focus, taking a couple of big deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, noticing how the lungs expand, the body filling with air. As you breathe out, a sense of ease as the muscles in the body soften. And just one more time, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And if you'd like to, you can just gently close your eyes now. And take a moment just to enjoy that feeling of having stopped, having paused, nothing to do, nowhere to go. And just feeling that sensation of the body pressing down, the weight of the body pressing down against the seat beneath you, the floor beneath you. As always, just checking in with the body, with the space around you, maybe noticing any sounds around you. Noticing any resistance to those sounds. Just allowing everything just to come and go. And as you sit there, or as you lie there, just noticing how the body feels today. Perhaps even any areas where you feel that maybe you're holding on to a little bit of tension. Areas that would benefit from letting go. And just for a few moments, just noticing how the body's breathing, that rising and falling sensation. Don't need to do anything with it. Taking a moment to rest the attention there. Imagine that above your head is a steady flow of warm sunlight flowing down into the body, all the way down towards the feet and the toes. We're going to imagine that this sunlight fills the body. And as it fills the body, it's just going to melt away any discomfort, any tension, just softening the body, softening the mind. So we're going to start down at the toes. So again, imagining that steady sunlight flowing down through the body. Filling the toes, the feet, up past the ankles and into the lower half of the legs. So once you set it in motion, it's as though it's just happening. Sometimes we're aware of it, sometimes the mind wanders off. Whenever the mind wanders, we just gently bring it back again to that image in the mind. So again, as that sunlight moves through the body, just melting any tension, moving into the upper half of the legs, and the muscles just softening as it continues up towards the pelvis, the waist, and any muscles, any tension, just softening, dissolving in that sunlight. So it continues up through the stomach and the lower back. And any tension just melting away. It continues up towards the chest and the upper back. Any tension just dissolving in the sunlight. So still that sense of sunlight coming down from above the head into the body, flowing down now past the shoulders, down the arms, and towards the hands and the fingers and thumbs. As it travels down the arms, again just melting any tension. The body just letting go. As it continues to flow down, now filling the area of the neck and the throat. Just everything softening into the jaw, the lower jaw, upper jaw, behind the nose, behind the eyes. Any tension just drifting away. Until that sunlight reaches the very top of the head. So even though the entire body is now filled with that sunlight, a sense of ease, a sense of warmth, a sense of space, we still imagine that it continues. And you can let go of the focus on that image, but allow the feeling to remain. As you bring your attention back to the body, back to that feeling of contact, back to the sounds and the space around you. You can gently open your eyes whenever you feel ready. But as always, taking a moment to notice how the body feels. To notice how the mind feels having taken.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen one day. I knew it. I was like, one day all this is going to fall over. And today was the day. So if you're here with
So
me, I
hopefully
hope you
you're
had a
able
good
to
laugh
feel
about
a
it.
greater sense of lightness today, a greater sense of...
See, that was me speaking that over my life. Had I not said that, it probably wouldn't have failed. But anyway, all right, my love. So how's everybody feeling? I don't know if you heard Andy ask that. But I'm going to apparently need to get some bricks and get my setup together better to make sure everything ain't jumping off the thing next time. But anyway. So, I didn't tell you guys earlier, but I need you to take your finger and hit the share button, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Visit the website if you get a chance and go see what we got going on. I'm going to put some TRIBEvibe stuff on there at one point. I ain't got that far yet. But I hope you guys found today enjoyable. Another thing we always talk about before we get off is about you finding your accountability partner. So if you haven't had a chance to, I'm going to encourage you to continue to try to find one. Somebody who's going to make sure that they say, hey, you getting on to do the meditation today. And also so that you can unpack some of these things. We talk about some deep things, and the things are just going to continue to get deeper as we keep going on because, why not? And so I want you guys to be able to unpack some of the things we talk about with, So if you have somebody on here that can listen with you too, that'd be great. So you don't have to explain everything to them. So anyway, I love you guys. I will see you tomorrow. We're going to talk about I done lost my whole train of thought after everything jumped off the train. We're going to talk about some tips and techniques on how to exercise letting some of those things go so that you guys can live your best life, okay? So, all right, I'll see you guys here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Hopefully, we'll have our Facebook and our IG going tomorrow. I don't know what Facebook is doing. And then also, I'm going to have a pep talk with the tripods, okay? Because I don't know which one of them jumped off first, but I'm going to have a talk with them. So, I'm glad that I didn't have two. Maybe that's why Facebook didn't cooperate with me today, because then I would have had to fix 2 phones. But anyway... Alright, y'all. So I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your evening. And I hope that you remember to hit the share button and remember to find your accountability partner. Alright. So, okay. See you tomorrow. Bye.